Okay, guys, ZeniMax just launched a survey asking for our opinion. Let's make sure they get it. Watch this video first and then go do the survey. Look, we understand why you added subclassing, okay? Because it had gotten to the point where every class was feeling the same, monotonous, you know, because there's always going to be people who just want to do the meta. But I just want people to know not everybody was playing the meta. Side and I weren't playing the meta. You know why? Because we were tired of chasing the meta. Because these builds constantly change. You don't want the meta. You want like this just underneath the meta, right? Because it stays right under the wire, just out of the way of nerfs, okay? That's what you want. You don't want the absolute meta because those ones, not all of them, but a lot of them are pretty copy paste because they'll figure out what the best of the best is and then they're like, look, this is the best, and then everyone's using the same shit all the time, right? That's not that fun. This is a vast, beautiful, complicated fantasy adventure game, okay? This is an MMORPG. Honestly, with some changes to combat, it could be like the best, period. But without the changes, I don't know, right now, you know it's bad when there's an event going on. The enclaves are pretty dead. That's bad. Even during prime time, they're dead. They look like it's a normal freaking Tuesday. And that's got to be one of the reasons why they're so desperate to get our feedback. One example of how it seems the Elder Scrolls Online has moved away from its roots and kind of lost its way and become almost uninspired. The game's roots were nurtured by deep lore from Morrowind, Skyrim, Oblivion, Daggerfall. And then in the Elder Scrolls Online, you end up having characters that end up getting unalived, and then magically and inexplicably, because who needs to write about it, right? Who needs to explain anything away when the game is rooted in lore? Uh anyway, I digress. It just falls flat. It makes players feel that the story doesn't matter anymore. And if the lore was what was the primary draw to bring someone into a game franchise, then what are you even doing when you do stuff like that? I'm not saying I don't like Lyris, I don't like Saisahan or whatever, but you could have at least made it to where, well, whomever the character didn't kill shows up to do this. You were too lazy to even do that. What the heck? I mean, I just don't understand. And with the lore falling flat for many now, all that's left is the combat. And now even that feels uninspired. It feels like the last 5 years, ZOS has spent trying to placate to every craving of every visitor of an ice cream shop, okay? Hear me out. You're in an ice cream shop, and the ice cream owner hears someone say, oh, I could really go for some wontons because there's no Chinese place nearby. And the ice cream owner's like, hey, I know how to make those. So he starts adding that to his menu. And then, oh, someone else wants a burger. Oh, now he's making so many things. And most people still just really want their good ice cream. But now their ice cream's starting to taste like old frying oil. We came for the lore, we stayed for the combat, but it's, I don't know, we're grasping at straws now. You guys got to do something. Just quickly go through all the questions that ZOS asks in this survey. First, they go through some demographic questions, like your age sort of thing, right? Not very many. And then they ask you what classes you like to play in ESO. And then they ask you which of those classes that you play, which for me, it's all the classes. I have at least 2 of every single class, right? They ask you 18 different questions for each class. Although it does tell you it's going to be 21 questions, which kind of makes me think and makes me a little sad because it seems a bit like maybe they had an AI make their questionnaire. That's allegedly, it just feels like an AI made the questionnaire because of the way that it's formatted. If you go in there, maybe you can come back and let us know what you guys think when you take the questionnaire. But it's just how humans don't like to repeat themselves over and over again, but the questionnaire itself has a lot of repetition. Like every single question says the instructions for it. Whereas if a human were to write it, they would say, okay, for all of these, you need to say if you agree or disagree. And then it would say, okay, now for all of these, you need to fill out an answer. And then, oh, for these ones, you need to give a scale on 1 to 10, right? But the AI doesn't think like that. It doesn't try to really simplify unless you tell it to. I know because I use it quite a bit for doing research and trying to find information so that I can actually come up with stuff to give you guys. It's just a little disheartening because it kind of feels like just sloppily done. Because why would you specifically say there's 21 questions here for each class that you want to talk about, but there's actually only 18? There's probably 21 questions total in the survey. That's probably where that number comes from, as far as like if you only chose one class. So it's counting the questions that happened before it asked you about the specific classes. So anyway, that's just a side note I noticed and I thought was a little bit disheartening because I really am hopeful that this questionnaire is taken to heart by ZOS and that they listen to all of us and make changes every time they say they're listening to their player base and then they launch something or they announce something. Up until now, it just unfortunately seems like they're either just placating to the same player base that they've always been placating to, which is usually either PvP or just like specific streamers that are on their stream team, or they are just doing it because they were told to and they're just going to continue to do what they want. Kind of like when nobody asked for an Arcanist or a Warden, those were completely off the radar for the lore of the game, and yet somehow they brought those to us and said, "Ta-da, we were listening to you guys." And we were kind of like, I don't know about you guys, but me and Snide were like, "Who asked for those? Like, what players are you talking about that were asking for a Warden class, who, by the way, is a little confused?" Just saying. They're more confused than a teenager, okay? Than a preteen. Because are you ice or are you a druid? Make up your mind, okay? I'm just saying. Anyway, I digress. Let's continue. Let's get through these questions and try and help get you guys in the right mindset so you don't end up doing like I do when I go to my doctor and I forgot to have a whole list to ask them, and then I get home and I'm like, oh crap, I was supposed to ask my doctor X, Y, and Z. I'm like, we'll just prep you guys. You guys can go and do your thing, give your opinions, and hopefully they take the feedback to heart. For each class that you say that you'd like to talk about in your survey, they are going to ask the following questions of you, okay? For these ones that I'm about to read off, I've reorganized them. They're not in this order for the actual survey, but I've reorganized them in a way that's a little more thought out, I guess. So these ones are, do you agree or disagree? And it's a scale of like 1 to 5 kind of. You choose the little multiple choice thing. There is a clear design inspiration behind the class. The class skill lines match the class theme. The class has a unique appearance, as in visuals, animation, sound. The class has opportunities to form a unique playstyle distinct from other classes. The class abilities and passives match the class theme. The class has abilities and passives within its skill lines that are effective while subclassed. There are clear strengths and weaknesses to the class. There are ways to work around your weaknesses and enhance the strengths that the class offers. I, as a player, have the tools to play this class as a tank. I have the tools to play this class as a healer. I have the tools to play this class as a DPS. Okay, so the next question is literally just a multiple choice question. It basically asks, in your opinion, this class is best at, and the choices are tanking, damage dealing, healing, or, and this kind of made me giggle a little bit because of just how wide, it's almost like they just don't care. Um, because it's like how wide the last option is. It's called something else. And in parentheses, it says, as in open world PvP, small scale PvP, exploration, questing, etc. So basically, they are pooling together basically PvP, exploration, or questing. This is why it seems to me like an AI made it, because it doesn't make sense to put all those things together. Why wouldn't you have PvP in general be a separate thing? I don't understand. Mm. It, it just, I don't know. It just feels halfway done. I don't know. But we're not going to let them, okay, the reason for this video, we are not going to let them have the excuse that they didn't know what we thought, right? So let's continue. Okay. So basically, of those options, it's like, okay, what's this class best at? Well, the answer for that one, if it feels like it's falling flat for all three of those main roles, then the only other option is something else, right? Because that's all there is. That's the only other option they gave us, right? I think they make you pick one of the choices, so take it as you will. The next section requires that you select on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is not effective at all and 10 is extremely effective. Yes, I felt like I was doing a survey for a customer service call. How effective is the class at tanking without subclassing? How effective is the class at healing without subclassing? And finally, you guessed it, how effective is the class as a damage dealer without subclassing? Okay, so answer those as you see fit for each class. And then there are 3 more questions. So that's 15 questions that they require you to answer for each class that you chose. And then there are 3 more questions that are optional, but this is where you can actually type something in, okay? And I don't think if there is a character limit, I didn't see any. So, the first one of those is, does this class have any abilities that you would never want to change? In other words, no, don't touch it there. Does this class have any abilities that you would like to see rethought or reworked? Okay. And then the last question is, do you have any other feedback on this class you'd like to share? That's your, right there, guys, that's your spot to say what you think in open forum, period, okay? So you know ahead of time. There is no place in the survey to give your feedback that's just open and not specific to a specific class. So this is where you're going to want to put that as well. Be sure you get everything you want out in the sections for the classes, because after that it's like, thanks for doing this, bye. I just want to say to ZOS, they're asking the wrong questions. They need to choose what they want to be. What do they want ESO to be? ZOS already struggled to balance the game for classes before. This has been an ongoing thing for over a decade, people. Why in God's green earth did they decide to add this subclassing system when they can't even get their own balance right without it? So Snide and I, we aren't the type to come and say, here's all the problems, you suck, and then run away, right? No. We are problem solvers. We love this, right? We love this game. We met in this game. Why it has a special place in our heart. It has an even more special place in his heart because of the Elder Scrolls lore and everything, because he grew up on their single player games before he met me. We want this game to succeed. So we have a game plan. We have options for ZOS, okay? Use it as a brainstorming thing, right? So you guys, when you guys go into your surveys, you can say what you think and you'll have more ideas in your head, right? To come up with options for ZOS, because I really don't want the excuse to be, well, they didn't think of that, or, well, no one really ever said that. And then the game dies. I don't want the game to die. ZOS, you guys got to pick. Do you want players to be able to play however they want and just have a smorgasbord of all the skill trees to pick from? Or do you want classes to have identity? Because you cannot have both. You can't. Okay. Now we're going to have a few options. We've got 3 options in this video that we're going to give you that can help you get a little more direction in your game. Okay. So never fear. Snide and Jiffy are here. Well, Snide and Lily. You guys can know me as both. Okay. So ZOS, one thing you can do to help with the lore is anytime you want somebody to come back that's from that original group of main characters, i.e., everybody that you meet because of the harborage, we'll just say that. Why don't you have it set up to where if the player unalived this character during the main story, then, oh, spawn one of these guys. You know what I'm saying? Like, just don't spawn the person. Don't have them running into the person that they killed during the main story, okay? That's all I'm saying. That's confusing, ridiculous, lore breaking, immersion breaking for a game that was built on lore. What were you thinking? How lazy can you be? Please fix that. Please fix it. It's hard. It's really hard. When people were Skyrim fans, Oblivion fans, Daggerfall fans, you get the idea. And we're like, come play ESO with us. And then they're like, oh, how's the lore? And we're not gonna lie. We're like, it's not super consistent, but it's okay because the game's great. I would much rather be able to say, it's awesome, you'll love it. Look, I'm not too proud to admit that I mess up all the time. People who watch my stream know they call me the scuff queen, okay? What does that tell you? So, Zos, could you please just admit you guys messed up and just fix it? I'm sitting over here, like, I honestly need to be just putting, like, the sad, like, honestly, I'm over here crying because, and it's so stupid. I know it's stupid, but Snide and I met in Elder Scrolls, and it's a game that it's a really great game. It is. But when you do certain things to games, it can kill them, even if they're really great games. Anyone who's a gamer a long time has seen plenty of games that they felt were great that died. And the route that ESO has been going, it's going to die way before its time. And I'm not the only one who feels that way. And I don't want it to die. Okay, so for myself, I would say with the Templar, I think there are two things with the Templar that were better before you completely changed them. The Poke Jabs, before you added that weird extra overhand animation, and then the Ritual of Retribution. Fact that it doesn't do the hot for teammates that are in the circle anymore. There should still be an option to have that. So, whatever you need to do, it needs to be able to do damage and heal at the same time. The numbers don't need to be as high, but it was such a great tool because no matter what the situation, you could help with some damage and you could help with some heals with one skill, and it had such a nice range. It just overall, please make it great again. Okay. And radiant oppression is wonderful. Please don't nerf that to all hell, and please don't get rid of it no matter what you do. The warden, please commit to plants and animals more like a druid. Ice, I can appreciate that another class can do ice, but it's like the only class that can do ice. So allow the sorcerer to have the use of ice in a real meaningful way. For the Nightblade, bring it back to its roots. Stealthy burst damage, okay? Assassination is a fantasy. Come on now. Also with the Warden, I really wish that you guys would give them more than just the bear that's a pet that will stay and doesn't just like last 5 seconds or less, right? That would be wonderful. Dragonite, tanking is excellent. DPS needs number tuning. Please don't change its identity. The Arcanist, please don't nerf it. It's clear and welcoming. It brings others up, right? So the beam, while it is a little overpowered, it does have its weaknesses. It can easily be disrupted. That in and of itself is a huge downside to it, but also it is great for new players that are just trying to fall in love with the game. And then the Necromancer, maybe lean in more towards the corpse bone shard fantasy, right? The ultimate ability where you turn into a giant bone dude. You're in like God mode in like Chaos Bar or whatever. It's like it's kind of ridiculous. So I don't know if you want to look at that too. But anyway, that's what I think about all of the different classes individually as far as the survey is concerned. For the three options that I think could really help the game quite a bit and give it a little more direction. First thing you need to do, no matter which option you choose, is make sure that each class has a tree that is for healing, for tanking, and for DPSing. And the reason I say that is so that you can make sure, okay, if is it in the healing tree? Does it do healing? No. Okay, it needs to go where it belongs. Put it in the tanking one or put it in the DPS one. And the reason I say this is because no matter which option you choose, it's going to help with your balancing. If each tree only applies to healing, tanking, or DPSing, right? Passives and actives. The ultimates. Okay, hear me out. The first option, this is if subclassing was just too much. As I said before, it's pretty obvious to most people that balancing was already a constant struggle in the game for developers, and it's not an easy task anyway. So adding the subclassing in, it was bound to cause problems. So if you were to sunset subclassing, that should make balancing much easier overall. This could also allow the classes to shine and rediscover their identity. With the trees having their own healing, tanking, DPS purposes, it should help you with balancing across the board as well, even without having the subclassing. Now, let's go into option number 2. If you don't want to sunset subclassing, then here's a second option. You're asking about class identity in this survey, but if you're going to keep subclassing, which is more like multiclassing, not subclassing, but whatever, right? But understand that there will not be any class identity. You can keep things exactly the way that they are and just have all of the class trees up for grabs so that people can choose, well, do I want to be 100% healer? So I'll pick a healing tree that were from 3 different classes, or full on tank, three tanking trees, or 3 DPS trees if I want to be the ultimate glass cannon. But they're not going to be getting all of these extra benefits, kind of like in the storm calling tree currently, where there's like a whole lot of damage you can get from that one tree, as well as a whole bunch of tankiness and a whole bunch of sustain from the same tree. Because what's happening is people are just pulling from just the ones that give you nice variety, a strong presence for all 3, and they're just tossing the other ones, right? So with the more clear roles for the different skill trees, it'll be a little easier to keep the multi-classing. Current subclass system is basically just pulling trees exactly the way they are from other classes, which is how the option number 2 would work in the way that it currently is now with slight changes, right? The third and final option that Snide and I came up with for Elder Scrolls Online to find themselves, if you will, is a totally different type of subclass system. Basically, where you have your class and you don't lose any of your trees, but if you subclass, you will get another tree that is basically like a hybrid of the 2 classes. Here is a list of all of the subclass combinations that Snide and I came up with. For each of these, there would be a new skill tree. So all it would do is give them another skill tree, which would embellish and add to roleplay as well as to class identity. So, for example, a Dragonite could mix itself with a sorcerer, and that could be a Storm Knight, right? Dragonite Nightblade could be a Shadow Knight. Dragonite Templar could be a Crusader. A Dragonite Warden could be an Ashbringer. A Necromancer with a Dragonite could be a Death Knight. An Arcanist with a Dragonite could be a Runebreaker. Okay, get the idea? Sorcerer and Sorcerer. Yes, I said it. You could double up. So you could say, I want to go all in on being a Dragonite or a Sorcerer or Nightblade, right? So you could subclass in your already existing class to gain another skill tree. So hear me out. Dragonite would be Dragoon. Sorcerer would be a Sage. A double Nightblade would be a Shadow. A double Templar would be a Bishop. A double Warden could be a Druid. A double Necromancer could be a Warlock. A double Arcanist could be a Scholar. right? A necromancer with an arcanist could be an archivist. A warden and an arcanist could be a tamer. A Templar and an arcanist could be a theologian. A Nightblade and an arcanist could be a cipher. A sorcerer and an arcanist could be a truth seeker. A dragonite with an arcanist could be a rune breaker. A sorcerer with a necromancer could be a lich. Nightblade and a necromancer, this was one of my favorites, a grave robber. Can you imagine a Nightblade and a necro as a grave robber? That's so good. A Templar and a necro could be an exorcist. Because you've got that like holy warrior mixed with necro. It seems like it's an oxymoron, but think about it. It could be an exorcist. And then a gravekeeper could be a warden and a necromancer. You could have a justicar, which we thought would be a Templar and a warden. A Nightblade and a warden could be a shadow hunter. A sorcerer and a warden, if they keep ice, could be a gale caller. A sorcerer and a Templar could be a Zephyr paladin. A Nightblade and a Templar could be an inquisitor. So you can see the potential. Like, that's huge potential. And you wouldn't even have to release them all at the same time. You could just roll them out over time. But I'm telling you, this is the most fun option and by far my favorite. Because you could not only bring back class identity, but you could make it even more dynamic, right? Make it even more interesting. And just to give you even more of a little bit of a peek into kind of what me and Snide were thinking with this is, for example, for the Ashbringer, right? That would be the Dragonite Warden. You could have an ultimate that is a grove of cinders. So you call up a ring of saplings that rapidly mature and combust, healing allies, then exploding to damage and apply burning to enemies. Right? And then it's just like ashes everywhere. For a regular ability, you could have magma vines. So roots snare enemies and then they ignite. One morph could be like clinging vines. So it has a longer snare but weaker fire damage. The other morph could be wildfire vines. So it has a shorter snare, but the fire damage hits harder. But again, you end up with just like ashes where there were plants. So I just thought that was super cool. And I think that Snide said that was his favorite class that we were brainstorming about as well. So anyway, those are our 3 options. Zos, you don't have to use any of them. You don't even have to give a crap. But we wanted to put it out there because we really hope you do. And we really hope you succeed. So with that, we'll see you next time, guys. Bye! That is... Okay, so the next set of questions is you don't do like me and expect that you're going to get to say anything else once you're done with the last class's fill in the blank with, words section. I might have said that one already, but I'm just going through the spreadsheet.
And that's it for this episode of Gaming News. If you enjoyed this update, please like the video and subscribe for more. You can also find all of our content in written form on our website, lilydognation.com. Link is down in the description below. If you want to hang out with us live, we stream on Twitch every Saturday. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.